Hey, Rashad.
Hey, Robert.
Hey.
Hey.
So, we're about to do this workshop, and some people have been asking questions, and there's been a little bit of confusion about what we're doing. And it seems like what people are wondering is they understand how Feldenkrais is useful for bodily movements and daily movements, but they're not quite clear about how the classic Feldenkrais approach applies to voice directly, and how the voice is really an integrated part of what Feldenkrais is. So I thought we could take a moment to clarify this a little bit, at least based on your thoughts and my thoughts. So the first question is, how does the basic Feldenkrais approach really impact voice as a study or as a practice, would you say?
Well, a few things come to mind. One is Feldenkrais, being a learning system, could be extremely useful to better understand what would be the most effective way of going about learning how to use your voice.
Mm.
So as a learning system, Feldenkrais is brilliant, in addition to the fact, and that maybe is the other part that comes to mind, it is in addition to the fact that as a singer, your body is your instrument. Your body, including your brain, your nervous system, and your relationship with what's around you, what's within you, and what's around you. And Feldenkrais is a work of relationship. It's a relational work. We approach learning and we approach functioning from a dynamic system point of view. So it's very, very useful, one, to better understand the instrument, the musical instrument that the voice is, as it is part of ourselves, part of our body, and two, to better understand how to use it effectively. The Feldenkrais method is a fantastic approach.
Got it. And this is the part that I feel is missing from the voice world. People know a lot of things about technique and what should be happening and how to make this sound and how to interpret this research. But when it comes to actually learning, there isn't always a very clear or reliable way to integrate these things that we might think are useful or think are the things we should do. And I find that not only is it sort of a trap to try to do the things we should do, but that there can be a process that's actually a learning process, an organic sort of process of discovery, which Feldenkrais really models quite well, where those things that you would be told to do actually are what arise spontaneously when you're feeling comfortable, moving easily, making sounds that you enjoy, and finding ways to put the connections together so that you feel successful, confident, and able to do what you want to do with your voice.
Very well put. There is something like that does emerge out of the process of practicing Feldenkrais in general, and particularly with voice. In my experience, I agree with you, in my experience, there is a bias in learning how to use your voice, where it tends to be that if you want to know more about how to use your voice, it tends to pretty much be linked to an objective or an achievement or a particular style, a style of singing, a period of music that you're interested in, which will shift a little bit the focus of the learning and distort a little bit the learning and the performance and the use of the voice. So I think one of the very attractive aspect of doing it with Feldenkrais is it is actually divorced from trying to achieve any particular kind of singing. In fact, we're not really interested in singing. We're really looking at the human function of having a voice and learning how to use a voice. And it is an art, but it's not an art that is linked to a particular period of music or a particular style of singing or a particular style of performing.
Right. Or aesthetic outcome or expectation.
Right. And in that sense, it opens it up to everybody. Many people are interested in learning about their voice.
Mm-hmm.
But if they do and look around at what's available, they end up with a singing teacher who will channel them towards a particular style of performing or a particular style of learning. Where with the Feldenkrais method, it remains very, very universal and open. It's an open-ended kind of learning how to use your voice. And of course, it leads to a very different kind of self-discovery because of that.
Cool. Well, I'm excited to explore these things, and I think it's fair to say that whether you're a singer or a voice teacher or a voice nerd or a Feldenkrais practitioner or just lover of the Feldenkrais method, that voice is a place where the method and the self and performance and art and really expression in all of its meanings can come together in a really beautiful way to impact, not only your movement and not only your singing abilities, but really your whole self.
Your sense of yourself, yeah. So I have a question for you.
Oh.
Oh. So you're a very, well, let's call it an expert. Let's use that word. You're an expert singing teacher. And when you started using the Feldenkrais method, and particularly when you looked at those lessons from the AMHERST training that do address voice and voice production, what is it that sparked you? What is it that inspired you to say, hey, let's go further there?
Well, first, I think the interesting part about how Feldenkrais comes at the voice is that he comes from this very global place and then comes inward. So there's a lot of preparation in terms of the torso, in terms of the limbs, and the head and the neck, and organizing all of the head and the neck in such a way that if you think about how we have this head and this sort of everything under it, and then we have everything under it and then this head, I find that the approach was very clearly organizing everything. And of course, right in the middle of that juncture is this beautiful tube with all these little moving parts that of course are affected by how we carry the head, how we carry the torso and use the limbs. So everything was set up in this really cool way so that by the time he got to something very specifically vocal, there was already a very available organization. And then he didn't do it in a very direct way. He really did it in a way that was like a question and really made it about survival. And what if you needed to use your voice to survive? How well would you survive? And I think that's a question that I think singers panic about a little bit because there is a kind of survival. When singing is your job, it's a different kind of survival. It's like, how can I sing 3 operas a week and not lose my voice? I mean, there's something survival oriented about that. How can I sing 8 shows a week and not lose my voice? But then there's sort of the regular survival. How can I use my voice to call someone in danger? How can I use my voice to call for help when I'm in danger? And I think putting those things together really gives you a window into voice that's much more primal and much more about self-use in anything you do. And then from there, it can branch out into all sorts of little special things. But that's like the foundation. And I find that to be a really beautiful place to kind of really go underneath if you're a singer, because we're used to all these fine little skills, but maybe we haven't really organized in a survival oriented way. So we run into troubles. And then if you are a quote unquote non-singer or general person, that having that base is a place where you can get to those fine-tuned abilities, but from a foundation that is sound, that is clear, that is free, that's ready, and has that survival power. Which is
So
cool.
it's a different definition of what a good voice would be.
Right.
It's not just having a beautiful voice and a pretty voice. It's having a voice that can really serve,
Right.
a person to be functional
Right.
and healthy.
Right.
Yeah.
From every kind of situation, from speaking with a young child to protecting yourself against a predator to
Mm-hmm.
calling for help in an avalanche.
Mm-hmm.
All of those require very different ways of using the voice, but each are equally important. And then there's the fun. I mean, I can only imagine that humans for a while there were quite bored around the fire at night and found a lot of time to play with what we can do in here. So beyond the survival part, it was also a lot of play and variation and really elaboration of this instrument that we could use to have fun together, to amuse ourselves, and eventually communicate what we're feeling.
Communicate and connect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all that comes together in a beautiful way when you think functionally.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, the line of thinking that we are going to go deeper in with a particular workshop and use some of Feldenkrais's ATM, but also add quite a lot of our own discoveries and our own experience working with voice to go further in that direction.
Totally. I like to think that this apparatus in here is like another whole little body that can do all these complex movements, just like we explore in the Feldenkrais way with the skeleton and the head and the neck and the arms and the legs and the pelvis, that body. But there's another little body in here in the context of the whole that has so many variation and differentiation possibilities that I could spend the rest of my life, which I plan to do, figuring out all of those possibilities at the same time that I keep studying the whole self and how it all comes together.
Mm-hmm.
Then, to me, it's
it's limitless.
Right. Totally.
Speaking of limit, should we move on?
Yes, we should. That's good. All right, so thank you.
Yes.
And
looking forward to more conversations, and certainly this coming workshop is going to be interesting.
Cool. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.